I have
So
not laughed that hard in a while.
That's
yeah, so
awesome.
she was actually in a podcast or on the panel with Shlomo.
Yeah, I was.
So we had a lot of,
juicy. Okay.
The icing panel that many people can't forget.
I didn't.
I had nothing to do with that, or I had everything to do with it, whichever. It was all Nick's fault, for the record. It was Nick's fault.
Really? I feel like it was Shlomo's fault.
No. So we were at lunch, and Nick was trying to figure out where to go buy beer because he said you wanted to hand out beer. And he was rushed to get back. And I said, hey, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. And so Miranda and I went, and we were looking for Smirnoff ices to ice all y'all. And the joke would be on Nick. Well, all we could find were those 32-ounce ice.
Crazy. I can't believe you were behind all of this and I didn't know it.
No, and
well, Nick is a total troublemaker. I could totally see, or like in a playful way. So I'm not surprised that Nick was.
You know, the craziest thing about that was that I was checking that, and in my mind, I literally was like more than halfway done with the bottle. And of course I put it down where I couldn't take it anymore. And I had just had like a little sip. Like it was.
Yeah. You were nowhere close.
Nowhere close. But in my mind, I thought I was almost done.
And poor Peter was so drunk. I mean, he's got no body fat on him.
Totally.
And he doesn't drink.
Wait, Peter's coming to GWA. I saw him in the app.
Oh, is he? That's awesome.
Good.
Yeah, he did not respond to my podcast invitation. So
he's not very good with email. Text him.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's a good tip.
We'll give him a hard time next week.
Totally.
Exactly.
Sure. I know.
So we've never, Sofia, actually, you reached out because you wanted to connect because we've never actually spoken. And so
we really haven't. I know.
I keep doing this to Jamie. She's like, so we're talking to who about what? I'm like, I don't know. Someone reached out. Let's just talk to him live and record it. I mean, it's so much more fun. Why have you explain your story and how you got here multiple times when we could just do it once?
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Pre-chats for the podcast. I'm like, no. We're just going to record all of it live right now.
I love it. That's the best way to do it. Fantastic.
Well, I mean,
Jamie sent me an email and she was like, did Joe like prep you on what we were going to talk about? And I said, no, but it doesn't matter. We're always ready.
No, I just wanted you to be like, we're doing it. We're good. We're uncensored here. Well,
Awesome.
Since you two don't know each other very well either. I mean, obviously we've met. I would love to hear your story. So is this location number 5 that you're sitting in or number 4?
This is location number 5. It's a really exciting location because, as I mentioned earlier, it's a historic site. It was a lot more painful to renovate than all of our other locations, but so worth it, right?
Because there's always surprises.
Incredible. Yeah. Always surprises. When it's historic, it's crazy.
You're in for a challenge.
But in the end,
you have a unique, well, you're a space operator and you operate another company. So tell us how you started with space and then evolved into, is it Piloto? Tell us how to say it?
Piloto, yeah. Piloto 151 co-working spaces, and then Pilotomail.
Wait, and is purple your signature color?
Purple is our signature color for Pilotomail, and for our co-working spaces, it's guava.
Gio, I want the different colored brim on our next run of hats. That's pretty cool.
Yes.
I mean, it's pretty amazing. I won't lie, it was pretty incredible to see you at Juicy. And it was like, I think she's on her 3rd costume change today and it's all purple. And I was like, does she have an entire crew that follows around and changes her wardrobe? And I'm talking about everything from different size or height stiletto heels to different different textures on your clothes. It was crazy. There's a lot of bedazzling going on. So it was hard to miss. It's incredible marketing. Don't get me wrong.
Thank you. I'm glad. I am glad I'm memorable. I'm glad I'm memorable, and purple is power. So it's all good.
Purple is power. Okay. Start from the beginning.
So from the beginning, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to your podcast. This is very exciting. I've never been on it, but certainly have seen many of your prior guests. So I'm excited to be here today. Thank you very much. And a little bit about me and how I got started in co-working to begin with. So I think that many of us in this industry started in co-working because we owned real estate that we needed to convert. Am I wrong? Right. So
Right.
our first co-working space location was a conversion strategy, right? It was a distressed asset. We needed to move it. It was also in a historic building in Old San Juan. It's a 500-year-old city in Puerto Rico. It's beautiful. And we converted that into a co-working space out of really necessity. We had a client that came in, saw the building. It was not renovated then. And he was a Chinese entrepreneur married to a Puerto Rican. And he said, so I'll take the third floor, but what are you doing on the second and first floor? Are you doing anything with other entrepreneurs? And my brother and I just looked at each other and we're like, yeah, we're building a co-working space. On the spot, on the spot.
Absolutely.
And lo and behold, 3 months later, we built the co-working, and that was our first location. And once we did that, we were, of course, the first in Puerto Rico to have a co-working space. So in many ways, there wasn't even a market. We created a market where there wasn't one, right? And part of what our mission was with Piloto 151 was also community building, right? There was no real, well, it was very nascent at the time, the startup and tech scene here. And that's part of our backgrounds. So we wanted other people to hang out with, right? And learn. And so we quickly became that startup clubhouse for the ecosystem here. And then realized, well, we can scale this, right? And so we started scaling the co-working aspect of it. And I think at some point, probably during year 3, we came to our aha moment, right? We started looking at the numbers, what was going on. And we said, you know, this virtual office thing people keep asking us about, right? There's something here. And by the way, it is the most scalable and profitable side of this business. So let's double down on it. And that's the moment when we said, let's be intentional about growing our virtual offices. And when we started quickly gaining much more traction. And then guess what happened? We were literally drowning in postal mail. It got to the point where we just couldn't handle it manually, right? There was no possibility of doing that. And I remember very clearly, you know, we were also concerned that we weren't able to keep up with the compliance. So when you handle other people's mail for virtual offices specifically, you have to have a commercial mail receiving agency designation, which is a US Postal Service designation. And that requires, you know, a lot of paperwork. It requires you to get information, have members fill out forms. In addition, it requires them to lend 2 pieces of identification. You have to go through that process for each of their authorized mail recipients as well. And then imagine doing that across hundreds of members, right? So when we reached that tipping point, it was about 500 members.
So
we said, oh my God.
How many spaces is that in? Just one space and
500. So 500 members was 2 spaces for us.
Okay.
Which was pretty good. Once we got to that point, and I think I'll share the story with you because this is actually a very scary moment for us. We actually had an FBI undercover agent as a member in Piloto 151 spaces, okay? And we found out because of course, the news and other people sharing that with us and whatnot. And that was the moment where I panicked. I said, oh my God, did we comply properly? Did we have him fill out his form and get his 2 pieces of identification? What are we going to do? Thankfully, we dodged a bullet, right? We had done everything correctly.
Somebody look up his account. Yeah.
But that's when I said, you know, we cannot do this anymore. We have got to automate compliance. And it's possible. It's possible. So let's figure this out. And that's when we started our journey in Pilotomail and eventually created a mail management platform that allows operators to automate their mailroom operations and in addition, offer virtual mailboxes to their clients. So that was in a nutshell. That was really fast, but that's the story.
Totally. No, need based. Sofia, you mentioned like a tech background. Had you like built software before?
Yes, you've never
Okay.
heard of it because it failed.
Okay. But it was an important part of your journey because
Absolutely. 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 I actually firmly believe that. And I don't know if you've heard of this event that takes place in like 300 cities. I'm going to say a bad word now. So everybody like, brace yourself. It's called fuck up nights. Right. And, and we run the local chapter here.
Okay.
And that's actually such a refreshing event because people talk about not their success, but their failures and their mistakes. And let's face it, as entrepreneurs, oftentimes we get invited to podcasts or, presentations to talk to others and inspire them. Right? And the reality behind entrepreneurship is that it really does take mistakes and iterations to get to where you are. And so that's a really cool event series that we put on, and it helps others in a way that maybe, talking about successes doesn't.
Totally. I love that.
So speaking of, I like doing this and it throws Jamie off sometimes. Oh no, it's not popping up.
I see it.
So you see it, but literally it's their Jamie, it's their page. Here, I'll do it this way so you can see it.
Oh yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, we're looking at the screen of the event. I think it's totally an important part, especially of building an authentic community, right? So you're hosting events and really creating, to your point, like the entrepreneur community in Puerto Rico, and making like sharing the good and the bad part of that super important. Yeah. So you have four locations. It's super interesting. I mean, Puerto Rico, 5 locations now. Sorry, yeah, your gorgeous new space that we're looking at. If you're on YouTube, it started from no other co-working or not much co-working in Puerto Rico, which is
no other. We were the first.
Roughly 3.5 million people on the island. When you introduce co-working, and it feels like there was an unmet need there.
Absolutely, we were the first, and so being the first is a blessing in many regards, right? But also a huge challenge because we had to do a lot of educating. The reality is that people didn't know what co-working was. The first tours that came into the 151 spaces were awesome because people would come in and they'd see like the open space and they'd be like, why would I work in an open space? And then, things that we take for granted now, right? Everybody knows what co-working is in Puerto Rico now. We certainly have some competitors as well, which is great. But at the time, people just were like in awe of this concept of me working in an open space with other strangers, right? So it's actually really cool how far we've gotten. And I think it's also a barometer for how we're doing as an ecosystem, largely.
What does your kind of product offering look like? You mentioned open space. How many square feet, percentage of, office versus open space?
Yeah, so we have roughly 100,000 square feet between our 5 locations. I would say that the percentage of open co-working and dedicated workstations to offices varies depending on the location. And we've done a very good job of actually having concept-driven locations. So if you think about San Juan as a city, right? It's a relatively small city, around 2 million. Our locations are very close to each other. We have 4 locations that are in the same avenue.
Oh, wow.
We have 2 locations. That are literally 3 blocks apart. Okay. And the reason that they're so close to each other is because we've created different concepts for them. So they cater, in addition to being in different neighborhoods, they cater to different folks, right? So this idea of like, what's that ratio? We have a location that's actually called Santurce Suites. And it's a suites location,
Okay.
right? It's executive suites. It's these small conference rooms that lead into larger offices for the rest of the team. And they host teams that are anywhere from, 5 to 15, right?
Okay.
So bigger offices. And in that location, we don't have that much open space, right? Because the concept is really these suites. And then 3 blocks away, we have a different concept, and it's mostly micro offices. So it's for smaller teams. Actually, the one that you have your background on right now, Gio, para 18. And that one is literally meant for solopreneurs, 1 person to maximum 3 to 4 person teams. And as you can see, you have much more open space in that location, right? So that's what's really worked for us in terms of having this very like high density locations in such a small radius.
That's super interesting. So you don't have a template. You are kind of figuring out who you want to serve and how to serve them. Yeah, I love
Absolutely. That. And I think that's key for smaller cities, right? Because in the end, we are obviously the largest player in the market, the only multi-location one and the largest, but you don't want to cannibalize yourself. Right?
Yeah. Yep. 100%.
So I think that's something that we don't talk about often enough in co-working, but it's important to know.
Yeah.
So let's step back. Where did the name come from?
Okay.
I Spanish is my first language, so I know what piloto means, but I'm just curious how you came up with it.
Wait, Spanish is your first language?
I was born in Mexico City.
What?
El español es mi primer idioma.
No puedo creer eso. Qué chévere.
Mucha gente no lo cree.
Theo is a man full of surprises.
I love that. So, what was the question again? Gio, you're going to have
where
to...
Did Pilotomail, where did Piloto 151, where'd that name come from?
The name. So, it's really interesting. When we started back in 2013, a book that was like really in vogue at the time was Eric Reese's Lean Startup. I don't know if you remember that book.
I have it. It's on my shelf. Yep.
Great book, right? And so this idea and this concept of starting small and validating your idea before investing more and before, attracting capital and going through the whole motion was really key in the startup and tech world. And so we figured, pilot program, like that's a good name. And then pilot, we were like, pilot is cool because you could do all sorts of things and metaphors with it, like, fly high, which is one of our slogans and whatnot, right? And the 151 was literally the number on our street, which incredibly is San Francisco Street. So that was really cool too, happy coincidence there. And the pigeons, which really have become iconic here, right? And hopefully with Pilotomail elsewhere too, really came out of a situation that we had when we renovated that first building in the old historic Old San Juan neighborhood. And we had just renovated it, we just painted it, fresh coat of paint. My brother and I were sitting in the cafe across, the plaza, having some coffee. We're just literally watching as the pigeons dirtied our facade. Like it was one of those things where we're just like,
this is not happening.
This cannot be happening to me, right? What is
it's
going
good
on?
luck. They say it's good luck.
They say the people who didn't just paint a building.
Correct. So at that point, we were like, okay, you know what? If you can't beat them, join them, right? Let's turn this into a good thing. And that's how, the pigeon became our mascot. And then we just slapped some aviation gear on it, and it was the Piloto pigeon. And of course, when we launched Pilotomail, it was very clear to us that we were going to continue with our pigeon mascot. Totally. And now we have a carrier pigeon, which
I was going to say that's wild.
Apropos.
Yeah. That's great.
Okay. That's awesome. Now you got to talk about these ping pong tables, Jamie. You got to check this
Oh
out.
my God, that is such an old picture. That's like a 2013
Gio will pull out all your secrets
picture,
on Google
Gio.
Images.
What is that? Okay, so first of all, there's a story behind the ping pong table.
Well, that's what I want to know.
Well, I'm actually quite glad that you picked this picture back from like 2013, which our spaces look nothing like that anymore.
Right, totally. You're like, we've evolved.
What ended up happening? So what ended up happening was that, of course, it was also a historic building. And if any of you out there have ever renovated historic buildings, you know, they're full of surprises, because guess what? There is no architectural planning whatsoever. There's nothing that you can go to, right? It's a 250-year-old building that you see in that background. And so surprise after surprise, our budget kind of escaped us, right? We went over. We finished the space finally, and we said, oh my God, we have no budget for furniture. And I looked at my brother and I said, well, you know, I saw these ping pong tables at Sears. They were like $180. It could be kind of cool. People could sit on them and work out of the ping pong table. And then we could also have like ping pong matches. I don't know. What do you think? And he was like, well, it certainly fits the budget, so go for it. And then something incredible happened, right? And it is the ping pong tables became an iconic part of our brand. So now when you look at our ping pong tables, of course, they are custom made ping pong tables that are super fancy, right? But this idea is, I think, really important in entrepreneurship in general. And to be honest, my favorite definition of entrepreneurship is the HBS one, where basically they say, look, entrepreneurship is your ability to go after opportunity with the resources that you currently have at hand, right? Because in the end, if you have infinite resources, then great, walk in the park, right? Entrepreneurship isn't that hard. Anybody can do it, right? But what makes entrepreneurship so challenging is that, of course, we have finite resources, and what you're able to do with that relentless pursuit of opportunity, despite the current resources that you have at hand, that's what makes you a good entrepreneur. And that's actually part of our entrepreneurial story. So thank you for that.
Well, I think it's every entrepreneur.
That blast from the past.
Yeah, it's part of everyone's entrepreneur story, right? And it's always so interesting just to think back of the evolution, right? I tell people all the time, when I started Fronteras commercial real estate, 15 years ago, I started in a Regis space. And actually before that, it wasn't even a Regis space. They ended up selling to Regis. And so it's just so interesting. I mean, at the time, I didn't even know what an executive suite was. I just thought it was the cheapest way for me to get an office. And here I am now. I'm on 80s. I guess I've done 80.
Like an influencer in the space now, Gio.
Yeah, and so it's been a lot of fun to see that evolution. So you brought up. So your partner is your brother your partner in the business, or okay?
In both
my
businesses?
brother. In both of them,
Okay.
yeah. Juan Carlos. People call him JC, but I call him Juanca.
And so, what's his background?
He's a lawyer. He's a
Okay.
corporate lawyer. Yeah, we're very, very different humans, which is great, because I always say that too, right? When you're looking for a co-founder, I mean, I'm blessed that I can work with my brother and that we're so complementary, right? But you always want to find somebody that has a complementary skill set to yours, and that's certainly been the case with my brother and I. And it's just a joy to be able to do that with my brother, right?
So he was on board. So the first space was somewhat accidental, and you owned the real estate and you had to do something with it. And then I'm guessing the mail was your idea. And then you went to him and said, next thing, let's do it.
I said, we are drowning in mail. and you know what? The pandemic was actually a critical point for us, because we had started developing the software, but it was sort of this like side thing that we weren't super focused on. And when the pandemic hit, two things happened. First, we were super happy that we had so many virtual offices, right?
Yep.
That literally carried us through the pandemic. And that's something that I always say, right? We've been able to grow our virtual offices, to where it's 40% of our revenue stack, which is a lot, right? And so that was very helpful throughout the pandemic. But then in addition to that, we were just seeing, like, how long is this going to last, right? There was so much uncertainty in that moment in lockdown. And at that point, we said, you know what, we need to double down on our tech, because if we need it, other people need it too. And there's a very big market out there. So we doubled down, we expedited our product roadmap, we hit the market for the first time in juicy New York, right? And, a year later, here we are. We're very excited about what we've been able to accomplish in such a short time frame.
So here's actually your co-owner.
There we go. Thanks, Gio.
2013 picture.
Is that?
Gio.
Yeah, thank you for dragging up.
Yes.
She's not wearing purple yet. I was trying to find one with her in purple and I couldn't. So this.
I also look the same, right, Gio? So you wouldn't have guessed that was 2013.
Totally.
Yeah,
It's impressive.
You do. So question for you. So this is Flex Uncensored, right? And you are super well polished and everything you're saying is so perfect. What is your least favorite trait about yourself?
Oh, wow. That is an intense question.
Leave it to Gio. That's his specialty.
Yeah. You know what? I'll say this, and it's really a double-edged sword, right? It can be a good trait sometimes, right? But I tend to be perhaps overly straightforward, if there is such a thing, right? I'm the person in the room. I'm the person in the room that's always going to call it like it is, even if everybody else is silent, right? And that gets me into trouble sometimes.
But it also gets you the respect, right? I mean,
I think so. I like to think so, right? I like to think that I'm not a polarizing figure, but certainly
that's the beauty of that skill set.
Things.
That's the beauty of that skill set, right? Is you can use it to manipulate or you can use it to inspire, right? And so I think that comes down to how you use that trait. Have you ever taken the Enneagram test?
A which test?
The Enneagram test?
I haven't.
I'm gonna have to send it to you. Jamie, we can't talk about, we're gonna send these ahead of time, and I'm gonna
but is this like a personality test?
Yeah, so it's a personality test that goes 1 through 9. And so Jamie, I would guess that she's a 7 with an 8 wing. So a 7 is an entertainer, right? So they always are super well polished. They want to be seen, right? Hence the purple and the outfit change.
I like that.
And the 8 wing she is a which is what I am, by the way, Sofia, which is you challenge everything, right? And so you're very straight.
Did we just lose Gio?
Oh, he froze for a second.
Well, I'm going to let you in on a little secret here, because of course I've taken plenty of personality tests, right? And have you heard of the DISC assessment, Tony Robbins' DISC assessment?
I've never done it. I know of it. I've never done it.
I am going to share this in like live YouTube
Uncensored.
feeds, uncensored. I don't know if this is like, a good thing or not, but I'm going to go ahead and share it. On the Tony Robbins DISC assessment, my sort of descriptor word is dynamo.
Nice.
That's a lot to take in. That's a lot to take in right there. All right.
I don't think we're surprised though. Yeah.
No,
definitely not.
No one is surprised. From the funny, you said you launched at Juicy New York, and that was one of the things. Liz is a great friend of mine, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, you will not believe who I just met. It's this Hispanic woman from Puerto Rico, and she's just so dynamic and she's out there and y'all are gonna love her. And I was like, oh, and Liz doesn't talk that way about people very often.
No.
Typically, it's,
I'm flattered.
Yeah. So either way, it's not surprising that's what your disc is. But yeah, Jamie, we'll have to take that one next. I've got to go back and look at my results. But
Yeah.
yeah. So what's next, right? So you just opened up 5, right? So is there more in the works? Are you going to stick to Puerto Rico? Are you looking somewhere else? What's the story?
So there's definitely more coming. They're all probably going to be in Puerto Rico, right? Early on, I think my brother and I decided, we're going to do co-working and this model, but just here, because let's face it, it's a very high OPEX and CAPEX cost, right? And it's a saturated market out there, right? So it would take a lot of fundraising for us to be able to replicate the Piloto 151 co-working spaces. And that's part of the reason why we always knew, we were going to go back to tech, to our roots, and really launch a global product that could scale from Puerto Rico. And that's really the driver in all of this, right? If you were to ask me, and you haven't, so this is just unsolicited here. What is my main driver in Pilotomail? I would answer, that I want to be that example for other entrepreneurs here, that it is possible to create a global company from a small island and from, a Hispanic small island, and being a woman in tech as well, that you can get that done, and that really, the world is out there now more than ever. You can become an entrepreneur, and a very successful one, and scale from anywhere in the world today. And Puerto Rico should not be that exception. So that's
I think that's huge, because we live in a world right now where we talk about how there's so many people that can't achieve things because of certain things that have happened, or where they grew up, or all kinds of stuff. And it's just so interesting. And again, shock you even further. My dad grew up in the projects of Little Mexico here in Dallas. And so it's so interesting. It shocks people even more when they bring stuff like that to me. And I'm like, trust me, my parents busted their butts to get me to where I am today. And so it's so inspiring and encouraging to be able to have conversations with people that have been able to, bootstrap and come out of things, right? I mean, and we all have a story, right? No matter who it is. And
tech is the great equalizer, right? It's really the only space that allows you to escape your current situation, right? And it is now easier and cheap to start a company and put yourself out there online and create great tech. That's something that 20 years ago you couldn't do that easily, but today anyone can start a company in tech from anywhere in the world, and if it's the right opportunity, scale it from there.
Yeah, no, for sure. Jamie, I've never asked you this. When and how did you start your space?
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's a long story.
Well, glad I asked it.
I mean, the very short version, and I think Sofia has to go, so I don't want to take away from her time. I, kind of always wanted to start something. I went to business school determined I'm going to find a co-founder and I'm going to start something. I didn't find a co-founder. I didn't find an idea. I walked out with a lot of dollars in student loans and decided, I'll go. I worked for Kraft Foods in brand management. But eventually it came back, and I just was really, really passionate about the environment that we spend our time in every day. That's kind of the short of it. And I just wanted to create a place where people could really bring their whole selves to work, because I had not really experienced that, in the corporate environments. So yeah, it's kind of long story. I kind of stumbled upon the concept probably like a lot of people did, to Sofia's point, and that's it. That's what I'm doing. And just kind of fumbled around and figured it out. Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason I asked you is because I mean it's so amazing to have two super powerful women right now on with the two of you that have created an incredible mini empire, if you will, in different ways, right? Because in reality, I mean, you're on episode 270, 280, whatever you're on. Sophia, you've
That's
got,
amazing.
it was 500, right? When you started Pilotomail. What are you up to now? Membership.
Oh, thousands. Yeah. We're very blessed. Yeah.
And how many operators do you have using Pilotomail right now?
Oof. Also, well, also thousands now. That's wishful thinking. It will
Almost.
It will be. No, we have dozens. So we're quickly gaining traction. And I think people are finally realizing, if I want to grow my business, a big part of growing my physical spaces was also being able to bootstrap with the revenue that I was receiving from the virtual offices and those memberships, right? And people are realizing, there is a cap on flex with the square footage, right? It's all about your square feet. And if you want to escape that cap and go beyond that, then you really have to be intentional about virtual offices. And of course, what I always like to say is that it's impossible to grow virtual offices if you don't take account mail, right? Those two things go hand in hand, and it's impossible to scale without software, right? So while many people in the space have traditionally viewed mail as a problem, we're coming into the market with a new philosophy. And it is that mail is not your problem. It's your opportunity, right? It's your opportunity to grow beyond your square footage, to in fact continue adding locations and to really take your revenue up, right? So that's what we're all about. And I think it's resonating with a lot of folks and a lot of operators in the industry. So we're very excited.
Gio,
Yeah, no.
she's well, you can sneak in one last question. I think she has to go, she's back to back and she has to log on with Kat Johnson for Kat's webinar. So should we ask our final question?
It's all you.
First, we can't wait to see you next week. So we'll get
likewise
in person.
Super excited. Yes.
I mean, depending on when this airs, it may not be next week, but we'll have seen you in Dallas and we're looking forward to that. Okay. Awesome. If I'm you, there's a lot that might be keeping me up at night because I'm running 5 physical locations and growing a tech company. Tell us, what keeps you up at night?
And it can't be the next purple outfit you're buying.
That's it, Gio. How did you know? How did you know? In the end, I go back to the same issue, right? I am a purpose-driven entrepreneur, right? And for me, what keeps me up at night is being able to set that example, prove that it is possible, be a role model for other women. It is so depressing to look at the stats in women in tech, right? And if you want to talk about depressing, look at the stats for Latina women in tech,
sure.
Right? And then you say, what is going on? Why is that? Why aren't there more women in tech? What can I do to move the needle? And in fact, I also started an initiative. It's called Women Tech Over. And actually the color there is also purple, Gio. And the mission in that organization is really to elevate women in tech, to set examples, to be able to be a role model to others and invite other women in tech to share their stories, right? We also have a coding boot camp, and that's also a very big part of it, right? And in Women Tech Over, we train women in tech, right? Because you can do that now with coding boot camps in a very short period of time. You can become a full stack developer. I mean, I learned too, right? I'm a crappy developer, so let's just keep it at that, right? But it is really important to change the narrative Because in the end, Jamie, we represent the largest consumers in the world, right? And we are buying products largely made by men. And that's a problem because they're not seeing our angle, right? And diversity really makes a difference. And it makes a difference everywhere. It also makes a difference in bottom lines, right? So that's also a proven fact. But for me, it's really about being able to get to that level where I can personally feel like I am representing, and becoming a role model for other Latinas and other women out there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we look forward to seeing you next week or whenever this podcast. We saw you last week, or 2 weeks ago,
Exactly.
whatever. Tell Kat that she's due for one of these too. So tell her hello and
I will definitely
enjoy your time with her.
For sure.
Thanks for making the
you
time
so
to do
much
this.
again for including me in your podcast. I am super excited that this is your number 200 and something, right, Jamie? So keep it up. I love that you have this podcast, and I'll see you soon.
Bye, Sofia.
Take care. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.